The new AP Top 25 is out. There's been some movement. There's some eyebrow-raising teams on this AP Top 25. It's kind of crazy. I'm going to get into that in just a second. Also, I'm going to review some of the scores from this past weekend and dive right into what could be in the future for a few teams. We have some big matchups coming up. But first, hey, I'm Brian. I am not Bobby Durkins, at least not on this channel. If you're brand new here, welcome. Welcome, friends. But hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications. That is the easiest way for you to support the channel. Also, it's free. So just, don't want to mess up your thumb doing that. But that's the best way to support the channel. Also, if you want to support the channel on a monthly basis, I have a join button right below this video, unless you're on an iPhone. You probably won't see it on an iPhone. $3 per month or $5 per month. You're like, what's the difference? $3 or $5 if you just want to support the channel that much. For the extra $2, I'm not going to come over to your house and give you, I don't know, financial advice. So let's dive right into yesterday. I'll interweave some of yesterday's scores in with the top 25. For us Clemson fans, we know that Clemson came out of that emotional game last week where they lost in overtime to Florida State. They went up to Syracuse. Historically, most recent history, Dino Babers has been a problem for Clemson. So they go up to Syracuse. I was afraid that they were going to be mentally hungover from last weekend. They went in, took care of business, 131-14. We saw some good things. We also seen some things that needed to be corrected. But overall, it was really good to see them get the win. Unfortunately, Clemson's only 3-2, 1-2 in the conference. They're not in the AP Top 25. So in the description below this video, no, I put it in the comment section over here, the AP News AP Top 25 for this week. So if you want to go to the comments section, you want to click there, you can actually read along with me. Some of these I'm going to buzz through. Some of them I might take a little more time. Now, no change with Georgia being number one. I will tell you this. I watched Auburn play them yesterday. I watched a lot of that game. It is scary that Hugh Freeze, just in his, fourth or fifth game, has Auburn playing that competitively with Georgia. I know there's been some changes with Georgia. I've talked trash about Georgia. I've had some fun there. You Georgia fans have had some fun with me. But Georgia, the dominant play is not there in certain areas, namely the quarterback. I could see that they kind of stepped back from Carson Beck and was like, hey, let's not put too much on his shoulders. Georgia got the win. He did the smart thing, get the ball to Brock Bowers, the best tight end, and in my opinion, one of the best players in college football. If you're going to go and put some of these guys in the Heisman Trophy race just because they're quarterbacks, let's get back to players who were, this has been the whole argument made with the Heisman Trophy for many years. Let's put players in the Heisman Trophy who actually are really, really good, whether they're a quarterback or not. I know the quarterback is a very important position, but Brock Bowers, I'm far from a Georgia fan. That guy can play football, and he's the reason they won the game yesterday. He's the main reason that Georgia pulled out of that game. They won 27-20 over Auburn. But Auburn played a very good game. For me, I feel like Michigan should have replaced them at number one. Now, if I'm a Georgia fan, I throw the bullcrap flag on that, and I say you're just a Clemson homer who's mad that his team's not playing great anymore. Maybe so. But the most dominant team in college football right now, as I said, right now, in 3 weeks, it might be a different story. But right now, Michigan. And Michigan's number two. They played Nebraska yesterday, and they beat the brakes off of them, 45-7. They're 5-0. Texas at number 3 played an undefeated Kansas team. I want to say their quarterback was out, and he's ridiculous. Kansas played with them for a little bit, and then Texas and their power and their talent across the board overwhelmed them. and won 40-14. I'm going to move just a little bit faster. Ohio State was off yesterday. The last time they played was Notre Dame, that last second win. Florida State was off as well. They remain at they're at number 5. They're at number 5 with that win over Clemson. Yesterday, Penn State played Northwestern. At first, Northwestern, once again, it was kind of like Kansas with Texas. They played close with them. Penn State had a couple of, errant turnovers. At the same time, you're playing at Northwestern. Northwestern's not that great. I mean, can you imagine what it's like to try to get fired up to go play at Northwestern? I don't. I don't know what it is. And I'm not a big fan of Penn State. I still think they're overrated. If they prove me wrong, great. You prove me wrong. Most of the time, I'm proved right that they're overrated. They're 5-0. They're number 6. Washington, number 5. Number 5. Washington. Or 5-0, sorry. Number 7. I can't think, y'all. I don't know what happened. I looked at that and said number 5. 5-0. They're at number 7. They played California, beat them 59-32. And number 8 is Oregon. Oregon's 5-0. They beat Stanford 42-6. If my memory serves me correct, they're off both teams are off this week. Next week, they play one another. Yeah, they play each other. It's going to be crazy. Washington and Oregon, what's so funny about them, if one team is kind of struggling and the other team is doing well, a lot of times the team who's struggling beats the one who's doing well. In this case, they're both 5-0. They're both in the top 10. I mean, they're the highest ranked Pac-12 teams. You kind of wonder what's going to happen there. That will be an exciting game. College game day will have to be at that game. Next up at number 9, another Pac-12 team, Southern California. They almost blew it against Colorado. They were up by a ton of points. And Colorado did the most impressive thing they've done all season. They stormed back. And I'm going to pause right there. And I've caught some flack for some things I've said about Deion Sanders, and I don't take them back. I have a totally different personality type, but I could care less about your 4 big bodyguards around you. One of them had a T-shirt on of something with a stick figure humping it, basically saying F yourself or F this or whatever. I don't find that impressive. I don't find the flash impressive. I don't find calling the people who was on the football team last year with a whole different coaching staff who went, 1-11 or something like that. Basically taking shots at them. They're going to do exactly what their leadership wanted them to do. That's not their fault. I don't find that impressive. In fact, I find that repulsive. I don't find it impressive that you beat 3 teams that basically were not that great. TCU was, my Lord, they lost by 58 points in the national championship. And then of the talent that was on that team, like Quentin Johnson and Max Duggan, and of course, Garrett Riley, the offensive coordinator, goes to Clemson. They might as well call them the artists formerly known as TCU because a lot of that talent was gone. But everybody, just to hype up the media, was playing it off. They just beat a team that was in the national championship. And then we saw what happened last week. I could care less about that stuff. But what they did yesterday, that was impressive. Even though they lost, they were getting their butts handed to them. They did not give up. They came all the way back, almost tied up the game. That's impressive. All that other bunch of crowd, the security guard with the stick figure, with the obscene gesture, I could care less about that. In fact, I find it repulsive. I find all the speeches almost repulsive. That right there. Remember, the only thing that matters to a football team is if you win. That's all that matters. They might have lost yesterday, but they showed me more winning spirit in that loss than they have in the 3 games they won. That was impressive. Number 10, Notre Dame. They beat Duke last night. Riley Leonard, I don't know if he is out for the season, but that injury looked pretty bad. I looked it up. I haven't heard anything. Anybody wants to throw anything in the comment section? I have the comment section turned off right now just so I can focus. I don't know what's going on with him. but it looked like he possibly broke his ankle last night. That was not good. I'm going to get in here to the comment section real quick and say hello to a few people. Dirty South, Mr. Knight, how are you? It's good to see you, Dirty South Connection. Clemson's starting to throw the ball downfield. Garrett Riley knows what he's doing. Go Tigers. Yeah, they should have let him throw the ball downfield a lot more this season. I was really happy to see that. Mo Buddy, Slim Shady Canes. The Memphis Trucker. You should start a show. Memphis Trucker. Something like that. Play on words. It'd be great. Thanks for showing up, pal. It's good to see you. Got 32 people in here. I want to mention the sponsor of the show. I have the link below this video. It's 4puttcarts.com. 4puttcarts.com is a beverage cart service, beverage and snack cart service for golf courses and special events. So maybe you don't have cart service at your golf course. Okay, look, after you become a real golf course and add your 18th hole, you might want to turn around and hire them as well, because that's how you're going to step up your game. Next up, if you have your own cart service and you're like, I don't need them, well, you probably are going to have an event where your cart service that you currently have is going to get overwhelmed. Call them. Step up your game. Have golfers walking away talking about the great experience that they had at your golf course. And once again, if you have just a special event, it's not even a golf course, reach out to 4puttcarts.com. They're doing some great things. Mention the show, and I do appreciate them sponsoring the show. They're very good people. Also, if you want to support the show on a monthly basis, you'll see the join button below the video. Unless you're on iPhone, you might not see it. It's $3 or $5 a month. A lot of people have been joining, and I really do appreciate it. Remember, my show is not attached to anyone. I mean, this is me in my bonus room talking about Clemson football and college football. So I have a lot of liberty, and even when I'm wrong, I try to come back and say that I'm wrong. Sometimes I don't notice it. But I just enjoy the liberty and freedom to say what I need to say. Vol Steak, yeah, Tennessee beat the Chicken Dirt Peckers. Yes, I saw them saw that last night. That was funny. That was really, really funny. Congrats to the Vols. I'm going to get back here to the AP Top 25, move a little faster. Notre Dame, as I said, they're 5-1. They're number 10 in the country. They beat Duke last night. Riley Leonard went down towards the end. Folks, how many times are we going to have to learn that when you're playing a team, and I'm saying this towards Duke, I'm saying this towards Clemson when they were playing Florida State last week. If you have a quarterback who can find receivers and make the throw, you do not want to give him time. You don't want to give him time. And Duke went into that 2-minute drill prevent. We're scared of losing the game defense, which normally people lose the game when they go into that defense. And what happened? Notre Dame went right down the field, 95 yards in 2 minutes and umpteen seconds, scored a touchdown and won. Notice what Notre Dame did to Duke, though. Duke was, they only had 45 seconds left in the game, 35 seconds, something like that. What did Notre Dame do? They had 3 down linemen, 1 lineman or linebacker who was in a stance and stood up. So basically they were rushing forward. And correct me if I'm wrong, on one of those particular plays, it was a linebacker who was rushing in. So you had extra speed, a little more charisma or not charisma, but agility than most normal defensive linemen to really sneak up the pressure on Riley Leonard, because Riley Leonard's incredible, and it worked. Note to self, if you ever coach defense, think about that. Number 11, Alabama, they won 40-17 over Mississippi State. Jalen Milroe had a massive run yesterday. Still questioning a lot with Alabama, but as long as they have Nick Saban on the sideline, good grief. But they are 4-1. Oklahoma 5-0. They beat Iowa State 50-20. That's right, 5-0. Clemson's old defensive coordinator Brent Venables 5-0 in Norman, Oklahoma. This coming week, Texas and Oklahoma Red River matchup. It's going to be a big one. It's going to be a really, really big one. Last year, remember, Texas won 49-0 last year. We'll see how this game goes. I think it's going to be much different. Washington State, 4-0. Now, of all the teams And they were off yesterday. They beat Oregon State last week, who we'll talk about in just a second because they had a big win the other night. But Washington State, really no one was talking about them in the preseason. Not really. I mean, you had Southern Cal, obviously Washington, Oregon, Utah, Colorado, because, I mean, you can't talk about anything without Colorado. I mean, Colorado is everywhere. Nobody really talked about Washington State. This team's 4-0. They're number 13 in the country. How long that will last, I don't know. But that's one of those teams you're like, whoa, how did that happen? North Carolina Tar Heels are number 14 in the country. They're 4-0. I can't remember whether they played yesterday or they played last week. I would have to look that up. But the last time they played was Pittsburgh. They beat Pittsburgh by 17. Next up, number 15, Clemson's former quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei, led his team the other night against Utah to a win, 21-7. They're 4-1 overall, number 15 in the country. I watched that game, and I'm going to tell you this. DJ made a throw off his back foot to a wide receiver. It blew me away. The announcers were going crazy. I looked at my son, and I said, that is what will throw you off about DJ. And then he turned around and threw some terrible pass. It's like, what happened? Or some head scratching, mind boggling in another way pass. And I told my son, I said, that's what makes you wonder about him. DJ can throw a football at an elite level, but his inconsistency is his issue. And hey, but at this point, they're 4-1. They did beat Utah. Utah is still without Cam Rising, and that has bit them in the butt. Cam Rising with I think it was an ACL that he had, ACL injury. That's going to continue to bite them until they can get him in. I think had they had him in that game, they would have edged that one out. Number 16, I'll watch this game. Ole Miss, they're 4-1. They beat LSU last night, 55-49. They were up by a solid amount of points, gave up the lead. LSU was up like 49-40. Ole Miss ends up winning 55-49. It did go down to the wire. It was a very entertaining game. Whether you like or dislike either one of those teams, it was still a very entertaining game. I'll just put it that way. Next up, Miami, University of Miami, Florida. You want to talk about a team, and Slim Shady Canes, this is your boys. This is your boys right now. You say Washington looks like the best team in the country. I tell you this, they're proving more and more every week that they're looking pretty good. They still have a lot. I'm more bought into Washington than I am Penn State. I can buy Washington way more than I can buy Penn State at this point. I feel like Penn State is a very good football team, but it's almost like their mama is writing their, the media press releases and driving the media praise for them. It's like, yeah, they're good. They're not what you're trying to make them to be. Washington has lived up to a lot more than what I thought they would. But going back to your Canes are nice. This is exactly where I would, if I was Mario Cristobal, the head coach for Miami, I would want it just to be a quiet rise to the top. The Miami Hurricanes have always had this flash about them. They've always had this, whether you loved them or whether you hated them. I always had this flash. This is different. I'm not saying there's not flash, but I am telling you right now, this team is doing it different. They're 4-0. They're number 17. In 2 weeks, they're going to play, I think it's 2 weeks, they're going to be playing my Tigers. I know this weekend Clemson has Wake Forest for homecoming. Then they're off. Then they play. I think it's the 21st, something like that. But Miami is flying under the radar. Everybody's paying attention to Florida State up there, especially in the ACC. Everybody's paying attention to Florida State. Everybody's still kind of gawking and making fun and kind of happy that Clemson's not nearly as dominant, though they have a ton of talent. Clemson's problem is not on the field. Clemson's problem is in coaching positions, offices. That's where the problem lies with Clemson. And I'm not talking about Garrett Riley. And I'll leave Wes alone. But I hope Wes learned his lesson that if blitzing every play works, you just continue to do it. Okay? You just continue to do it. Somebody asked me that point blank. They were like, so you mean to tell me that Clemson was supposed to continue blitzing? If it's working, yes, you don't stop. You don't give someone who's a great athlete and a fifth-year player a chance to regroup mentally after he's picking grass out of his helmet. He's been hit so many times. There's an imprint of him in the ground. And you're giving him time to figure out which giant wide receiver he wants to throw the ball to. Florida State has a 6'7", a 6'4", a 6'3". I mean, huge and fast. I mean, it's good grief. Yes, but anyway, getting back to the Canes. The Canes, Slim Shady Canes says, y'all have Georgia Tech this week. Then you have UNC. That's going to be a big game. And then Clemson. So the road's about to get tougher for Miami, but they're quietly doing this thing. Number 17. Number 18, Utah. Utah drops 8 spots after that loss to Oregon State the other night. They lost 21-7. I've watched Utah play football a lot this season. I saw their win against Florida, which, by the way, Florida getting tanked by Kentucky. I'll talk about that in just a second. But Utah would be a totally different team if Cam Rising was playing. And it's just not working. But Utah drops down to number 18. If they can't get Cam Rising on the field, they're going to be out of the top 25 pretty quick. Not because their team is not that good. It's just his play is that great, and the rest of the team is getting worn down. And that's what happened. Number 19 is Duke. They're 4-1. I talked about it. They lost last night. They only dropped 2 spots. I'm glad the voters didn't, I'm glad that they didn't heavily penalize Duke. That was a great game. And they took Notre Dame down to the wire. They lost 21-14. It was a fantastic game. I'm hoping Riley Leonard's okay. It looked like he broke his ankle. I don't know. I hope not. Kid has a great story. He's a fantastic talent. Number 20, Kentucky. I was talking about Florida getting blistered yesterday. Kentucky is 5-0 and number 20 in the country. They beat Florida in Lexington yesterday, 33-14. Florida looked ugh. And I've lived long enough to remember Florida when they came to town. Unless you were the best football team in the country, you're going to get your butt whipped. Yesterday, they look like a bunch of lackeys. I'm shocked that Tennessee lost to them. I really am. But as my brother-in-law, who was a Tennessee grad, says, if Florida was 0-3 and they came in to play Tennessee, they would all of a sudden become Super Bowl contenders when they play Tennessee because they take that game very personal. And then they'll fall back off. And that's exactly what they've done. Florida is not even in the top 25. Florida is not that good. I don't think that was a bad coaching hire. When they hired Billy Napier, Billy Napier is not a bad coach, but that job is just, they could have got a better coach, period. And he could have went somewhere else or stayed at Louisiana, built up his stock a little more, maybe got a job that paid him about as much money, maybe even more, who knows? But that he could not have so much pressure on him because Florida fans are tired of what's going on and it's only getting worse. And so they'll fire him. If he keeps falling, they'll fire him. And this is only year 2. Missouri, number 21. I heard a lot of good things about Missouri last year. They took Georgia down to the wire last year, could have beat Georgia. But it's just like Missouri couldn't turn the corner. It was like, oh, we have some good players here and there. They had Dominique Lovett. He was one of the top players in the transfer portal. Georgia swooped in, picked him up. But they still have talent on the team. They have that 5-star wide receiver they picked up a couple of recruiting cycles ago. They're doing great. They did play Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's terrible. But the thing is, once again, like I said, with Penn State playing against Northwestern, who wants to get fired up for Vanderbilt? Vanderbilt, they are fantastic at spelling bees and becoming doctors. They're not good football players. If you need a surgery and you're at Vanderbilt, great. That's wonderful. If you need a team to pull it out in the name of Vanderbilt, they're not doing it. Missouri, let them hang around for a little bit. They won 38-21. They're number 21. Tennessee beat the South Carolina Gamecocks 41-20. I watched that game. You did fall one spot, but yeah, you're 4-1. There's still a lot to play for. Joe, it just goes back to Joe Milton. Joe Milton has got to step his game up. You know, I know all these freak athlete things that he can do, but there's just so much. There's just so much there. You just scratch your head and you go, wow, I don't know. I don't know. Now, a team that was heavily penalized, who dropped majorly in the polls, was LSU. They dropped 10 spots to number 23 after that loss last night to Ole Miss, 55-49. They still had a chance to win it at the very end. That was a crazy game. Also, going back to Tennessee, Brew McCoy, their wide receiver, he got messed up. His season is over. Unless I'm going to look this up, but I'm pretty sure he's done for the season. I think it was pretty. It was a gruesome leg injury, is what I've heard. That it was pretty. It was. I walked out of the room and then it happened, and I just heard that it was beyond gruesome. So he's. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's done for the season. Looking at some of the comments. Let's go back here. Number 24. Number 24 is Fresno State. Fresno State, I remember when Fresno State used to be a really solid football team. Now they're getting back there. They beat Kent State. I know Kent State's not a great team, but they won 53-10. What's my philosophy? Good teams beat bad teams bad. If you're not beating a bad team bad, you're either A, not focused, or B, you're not that good. They beat a bad team bad. That's really good. And capping out number 25, a team that you have to give some props to. First-year head coach. He's a Louisville man. He's a Louisville grad. When he farts, it smells like Louisville. Brian Brom at Louisville, coming home from Purdue down to Louisville. Louisville is 5-0. They beat NC State the other night. I watched all that game. He won they won 13-10. They're 5-0. They were down 10-0 and just stepped it up. I kind of wonder how much longer North Carolina State's going to keep up or keep giving grace to Dave Doran. You know, Dave Doran's been there for a while. I just don't know why they would keep him around. It just doesn't make sense to me. But Louisville, they are at number 25, and that rounds out the AP top 25. So, have 58 people in here. I appreciate you joining me on this Sunday afternoon. If you have not subscribed yet, please do that. It helps my channel, and it's free. It's free. So I do appreciate that. Also, if you want to support the channel on a monthly basis, I have a $3 and a $5 membership. There's a join button below this video. Unless you're on an iPhone, you probably won't see it. I do appreciate it. It is very easy to join, and you won't even notice those amounts. So I do appreciate the support. Also, a special shout out to 4puttcarts.com. The link is below the video. They're a sponsor of my show. They're a beverage cart service for golf courses as well as special events. So if you want beverage and snack service for your golf course or your special event, you need to reach out to them and let them know that you heard, whatever, found out about them on the Not Bobby Durkin show. I do appreciate that. So let's talk about week 6. We're going into week 6 of the college football season. Now, remember, I actually went through every week during the summer as we were getting closer and closer to the football season, but you were still far enough away to where you wanted college football and you just couldn't get into it, right? You just couldn't. It was just like, man, it's still, 2.5 months away. We're so close, It's not like it's February, but you're still far enough away to where you're like, please, please, please. So I've already went over this week, but as I said, then dynamics change. Who was good may not in the preseason, may not be good in real life. Maybe some of the teams are good, but as the season progresses, maybe they were overhyped, or maybe they're a Miami, maybe they're a Louisville, maybe they're a North Carolina who, if you would have told me they were going to crack the top 20 with the players they lost on offense and the questionable defense, I would have said maybe for a week and then they're going to drop out, but they're slowly climbing. There's a lot to be proven by North Carolina, but the truth is they look really good. So let's talk about some games that are coming up this weekend, just to kind of stay in the loop and try to figure out, who is who and what games you might want to watch. Now, Louisville, LSU plays at Missouri, 12 o'clock this Saturday. So this is October the 7th. This Saturday, LSU at Missouri. Now, LSU, they've dropped 2 games. Now, it's been to 2 good teams. Missouri, on the other hand, they're undefeated. They're number 23. All right. Just to give you some context of how good they are versus who they've played. And I'm just going to pull up their schedule right now. So we know who LSU's played. They played FSU. They played Ole Miss last night. And they lost. Now, Missouri, they've played some smaller teams. So I'm not saying that they're going to burn the woods up and they're going to take over the SEC East. I'm not saying that. But they have won every game they've played this year. The toughest team they've played so far is Kansas State. A couple of weeks ago, they played Kansas State and they beat them by 3 points. With that in mind, they struggled with Memphis. They beat Memphis only by 7 points. They only beat Middle Tennessee State by 4 points. And the first game of the year was against South Dakota State. They beat them 35-10. The quarterback is a really fiery guy, Brady Cook. He's a 6'2", 205-pound junior out of St. Louis. The guy's 105 of 141 attempts, 1,468 yards, and 11 touchdowns. So he has the ability to bring a lot of excitement to the game. But once again, how good are they? Right now, the current line is LSU by 6.5. I don't have a spread at this moment. But that tells me that Vegas believes this is going to be a close game. Luther Burden III, the great wide receiver that Missouri picked up, 43 receptions, 644 yards, 5 touchdowns, average of 15 yards per reception. The guy can play. That'll be an interesting game. You might want to check that one out. 12 o'clock ESPN. A game that is interesting, 12 o'clock, starting at the same time on Fox, is going to be Maryland at Ohio State. That'll be an interesting game. Because Ohio State just snuck one out against Notre Dame. It was a hard-fought game. They won it. And now you have Maryland coming to town. Now, Maryland, they're 5-0, 2-0 in the conference. Once again, we have to qualify this. They haven't played the best teams in the country, but once again, they've won. In the first game, they played, I think it's Towson. 38-6. They beat Charlotte 38-20. They beat Virginia 42-14. They played Michigan State last week. With all of that crazy stuff that's going on at Michigan State, you never know what to believe. I hadn't read the reports, but even some of the reports I'm kind of weary of reading because you never know from what journalistic angle they're written from. But they beat Michigan State 31-9. And then over the weekend, yesterday, they beat Indiana 44-17. So the talent hasn't been completely horrible. It hasn't been complete trash, right? At the same time, this will be a great test for how good they are. Now, let's just say this. And by the way, I'm going to throw this out there. The game's at Ohio State, so it's going to be tough to play in Columbus. For anybody. For anybody, it's going to be tough to play in Columbus. Right now, Ohio State's an 18-point favorite. But if Maryland plays even close to them, that will be a great indicator of how good Maryland actually is. So that'll be a game that you might want to check out this weekend. By the way, I have 70 people in here watching live. Thank you so much on this Sunday afternoon. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, hey, that's the simplest, freest way to do so. So to support the channel. So please do that. Let's go back here and take a look at the schedule again. As I talked about, Oklahoma and Texas, that's the big game, 12 o'clock ABC this Saturday. Now remember last year, Texas beat Oklahoma in Brent Venable's very first Red River rivalry as the head coach, 49-0. And that's all everybody can think about. This is a very different Oklahoma team, but a different Texas team. So it will be interesting to see how these teams compete. Obviously, I mean, both teams are 5-0. Right now, Texas is a 5.5-point favorite. So what that says for Vegas, what they believe the outcome will be, they believe that both these teams are extremely competitive, but they're given just a slight edge to Texas. When you start getting around 3 points, 3 and 4 points somewhere in there and below, you're at the place to where Vegas is going. It's anybody's game. So this is going to have the eyes of the nation on it. Every weekend pretty much has had one game where the eyes of the nation was on it, and it had a really good implications. Yesterday was Duke and Notre Dame. Duke and Notre Dame was a really good game to watch. There was a lot going on there. There was a lot to pull for. There was a lot of firsts there. This weekend, this is a traditional rivalry. This is a historic rivalry. This is about to be an SEC matchup next year with the whole new conference lineup and so on. Now, what Texas has in their pocket that Oklahoma doesn't have in their pocket is that Texas beat Bama at Alabama. All the other wins were just like, yeah, it was good to beat Kansas. It was good to beat Baylor or Wyoming or Rice. But winning that game at Alabama, that's what made everybody sit up and take note. Oklahoma really hasn't had a close game. I mean, they played Cincinnati at Cincinnati, won by 14. Okay. That's kind of a head scratcher there. I would think that maybe they would put up a few more points in that game. But other than that, they've really dominated every game they've played. It'll be interesting to see how that game turns out. I just said something like that, Tyler, about 20 minutes ago. Michigan looks pretty doggone good compared to them. Yeah. Have Washington State at UCLA at 3 o'clock on the Pac-12 network. That'll be an interesting game. Can Washington State keep their head on straight? That'll be questionable. Hey, for us ACC or Southern, maybe Carolina-based fans, and what I mean by Carolina is you live either in South Carolina or North Carolina. Maybe you live in the South. You're paying attention to ACC and SEC teams. NC State just lost to Louisville. NC State lost to Notre Dame. Okay, well, everybody's going to give them a pass for Notre Dame, but Louisville, I don't know. Marshall comes to town. I will be very interested to see what happens to Dave Doran if Marshall beats them. That'll be a great question. This weekend, Virginia Tech travels to Florida State, so Florida State will win that ball game. It's homecoming for Clemson. Wake Forest comes to Clemson. Wake Forest is not the team that we've had to deal with over the past few years. That'll be interesting. That's 3:30 on the ACC network. Syracuse at North Carolina. Syracuse just suffering their very first loss. Remember last year when Clemson and Syracuse played, both teams were undefeated. Clemson was like number 4 and number 5. Syracuse was somewhere like, number 14. After they lost to Clemson, they lost 4 more in a row. The same happened this year. They go to North Carolina. That'd be a great chance for redemption. Number 12, Alabama goes to Texas A&M. That's going to be the 3:30 game on CBS. By the way, Brad Nessler does such a doggone good job. I love listening to Brad Nessler commentate a game. It just sounds like college football to me. He's really good at what he does. Kentucky at Georgia. This is going to be interesting. Kentucky's there in the top 25. They did what they did to Florida yesterday, but they're at Georgia. Georgia's a tough place to play. I mean, home field advantage at some places is like, oh, okay. Home field advantage at Georgia is ridiculous. The best win that Kentucky has had all year was yesterday. Now, what a time for you to be getting hot, About to go play the 2-time defending national champions at their house. Georgia's still a 15-point favorite, folks. 15-point favorite. Got a bunch of people in here saying hello. It's good to say hello to everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. I do appreciate you stopping by. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It's free. It's not going to do anything but help the channel, and I really do appreciate it. Now, probably missing a couple of games here somewhere along the way, and someone will go, you call yourself a real fan, and you missed that one. Yeah, maybe so. Notre Dame's at Louisville, 7:30 ABC. That's going to be a good game. I think Notre Dame's going to win that game. But Louisville, they're going to do their best. Fresno State, number 25, playing against Utah. Playing against Wyoming. That'll be interesting. Can Georgia Tech up in Miami? I don't think so. Oregon State at California. Beware of California. They can score points. And just to kind of finish it out, Arizona at number 8 USC. That'll be an interesting game. That'll be a late game, Pac-12 after dark, 10:30 game on ESPN. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining me on this show as we looked over the AP Top 25. We went over the schedule for this coming weekend. I will be talking about Clemson and Wake Forest this week. Clemson should definitely win that game. Also, if you haven't checked out my video I did a video on some comments that Ben Boulware made about some comments that Dabo Swinney made. You might want to check that one out. It's very interesting. And so be looking for those videos and coming up this week. And then the one I did on Ben Boulware's comments is very entertaining, if anything. But either way, folks, thank you so much for joining me. As I say, if you hadn't subscribed, please subscribe. It really does help the channel, and it's been growing, but it's only because people have been using their thumb to go click And I really do appreciate that. If you want to join on a monthly basis, support the channel, the link is below the video, or the button is below the video. Thanks to all of you. I'll see you later on this week. Let me see. Hold on one second. Never mind. That was some really good comments, but I need to go. Folks, thanks for joining me. As always, go Tigers.